My younger sister mocked me. Where's your husband? Oh, right. You don't have one. My parents burst out laughing. So I said, Where's the money from both sides? Oh, right. I've been providing for both sides, up until today. The whole table fell silent. And that was that fateful night. Everything changed. I'm Cassidy Rhodes. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a marketing coordinator in Minneapolis. For years I lived in the Edina suburb just like the rest of my family, thinking that blood meant something more than just a last name. That Sunday dinner started like any other. The usual routine at my parents' house in Edina. Everyone gathered around the table, plates passing, small talk floating in the air. Then my younger sister decided to bring up my personal life again, right there in front of everyone. Her words hit like a slap, and when my parents joined in with their laughter, something inside me finally snapped. I looked at them and fired back with the one truth they never wanted to hear. The silence that followed was heavy. No one reached for the food anymore. No one knew what to say next. In that moment, I realized the years of quiet support I had given, the overtime hours, the sacrifices I made without complaint policy, had all been taken for granted. They saw me as the reliable one, the one who would always step up, never as someone with her own life and limits. If you're watching this and you've ever felt used by the people who are supposed to love you the most, drop a like and let me know in the comments. What would you have done in my place? Stick around, because this is just the beginning of how everything fell apart and how I finally put myself first. 8 years ago, when I had just moved back to Edina, everything felt like a fresh start. I had landed my first real job in Minneapolis as a junior marketing assistant at a mid-sized tech firm downtown. The commute was manageable, and the salary seemed decent enough for someone in her mid-20s. I thought I could finally focus on building my own life after college, but then the calls started coming. My father, Harold, had lost his accounting position due to company downsizing, and the mortgage on the family home in Edina was falling behind. The monthly payments were climbing, and the bank had already sent warning letters. Without hesitation, I stepped in and covered 2 full mortgage payments that first year. It felt like the right thing to do. Family helps family. Soon after that, my younger sister Delaney needed help with her college tuition. She was starting her sophomore year at the University of Minnesota and had chosen a communications major that came with expensive textbooks and lab fees. I paid her entire semester bill so she wouldn't have to take out more student loans. She thanked me at the time, but the pattern had already begun. Then my father faced a sudden health scare that required emergency room visits and follow-up procedures. The bills piled up quickly because his insurance coverage was limited after losing his job. I transferred money directly to the hospital to keep the accounts current. Those expenses alone added several $1,000s in a single month. Over the next few years, the requests never really stopped. I worked longer hours at the office, often staying until 8 or 9 at night to finish campaigns and reports. Overtime became my normal routine. I skipped vacations, delayed buying a newer car, and lived in a small apartment to save every extra dollar. All of it went towards supporting the household back in Edina. By the time I turned 30, I had quietly contributed more than $80,000 in total. That included multiple mortgage installments, 4 years of Delaney's tuition and books, several rounds of medical costs for my father's YT, and even smaller ongoing expenses like utility bills and car repairs for my older brother Spencer when his sales job hit slow periods. I never kept a strict ledger, but the bank statements told the story clearly enough. My role slowly shifted from daughter to primary provider without anyone openly acknowledging it. I told myself it was temporary, that things would improve once my father found new work and Delaney graduated. Instead, the support became expected. No one questioned where the money came from or how much effort it took on my end. Those recent years, the pressure grew even heavier. My role at the tech firm had evolved into a full marketing coordinator position with hybrid schedules that split my time between the Minneapolis office and remote days at home. Deadlines for campaign launches came faster than ever, often requiring late-night adjustments to social media strategies and analytics reports. The team expected quick responses even on weekends, and I delivered every time because missing a target could mean losing a client account. The commute during Minnesota winters added another layer of exhaustion. with icy roads between Edina and downtown making each drive feel longer than it should. At the same time, the financial requests from home continued without pause. When my parents' utility bills spiked one winter due to higher heating costs in Edina, I wired money to cover the full amount so the lights and heat stayed on. Another time, my mother needed new appliances after an old refrigerator broke down completely, and I handled the replacement cost without question. Birthdays became routine expenses too. I sent gift cards and covered dinner outings for the whole family because I knew they counted on me to make those celebrations happen smoothly. My older brother Spencer faced a setback when his sales territory changed and his car needed major repairs to keep him on the road for client visits. I paid the mechanic invoice directly so he wouldn't miss work opportunities. These smaller but frequent contributions added up quietly in the background, while I managed my own budget tightly. I skipped personal upgrades like a better laptop or a short weekend trip because every extra dollar went toward keeping the household stable. Inside, I started feeling the weight more clearly. Conversations with my family rarely asked about my own projects or how the marketing campaigns were going. Instead, the focus always shifted back to their immediate needs or upcoming expenses. I began to sense that I had become the default solution rather than a daughter with her own goals and boundaries. The pattern felt endless, and the silent expectation that I would always step up left little room for my own life to expand. Even with the promotion and the increased responsibilities at work, the balance tilted heavily toward supporting everyone else. I pushed through the fatigue by reminding myself that this was what family did for each other. Yet the quiet resentment grew in moments when I sat alone after a long day, staring at my bank balance and wondering how much longer the arrangement could last before something had to give. The hybrid work gave me more flexibility on paper, but in reality it only meant more hours available to handle whatever came up from Edina. Team meetings often ran long into the evening, and I would step away briefly to answer calls about overdue bills or sudden repairs. No one at the office knew the extent of what I carried outside the job, and I kept it that way to stay professional. The winters in Minneapolis made everything feel heavier too. Snow piled up quickly, and the short daylight hours left little energy for anything beyond work and family obligations. I still showed up for Sunday dinners at my parents' house because that was the one consistent tradition we maintained. Those evenings usually started light, but often circled back to money matters before dessert arrived. My sister Delaney would mention new influencer opportunities that needed equipment, and my parents would nod along while looking in my direction. I handled those requests the same way I always had, transferring funds the next morning without drawing attention to the growing toll it took. What bothered me most was the lack of balance in how we interacted. I heard updates about Spencer's sales numbers and Delaney's content performance, but questions about my own career milestones or personal plans rarely surfaced. It was as if my role had solidified into the provider slot, and stepping out of it seemed impossible without causing disruption. I told myself the situation was temporary and that things would shift once everyone stabilized, but deep down I knew the pattern had become too comfortable for them and too draining for me. The pressure built steadily, layer by layer, until it sat just below the surface, waiting for the right moment to break through. And then that Sunday dinner arrived. The table in my parents' house in Edina was set with the usual dishes, plates passing around as everyone settled in. My mother Evelyn had prepared a roast with sides that filled the room with familiar smells. My father Harold sat at the head, my older brother Spencer next to him, and my younger sister Delaney across from me. Conversation started light, covering weekend plans and local news from Minneapolis. Then Delaney turned her attention to me with a smile that carried an edge. She leaned forward slightly and asked the question that cut straight through the small talk. "Where's your husband?" "Oh, right. You don't have one?" Her tone made it clear this was meant as a joke for the table. My parents burst out laughing right away, and Spencer joined in with a chuckle. The sound echoed around the dining area while I sat there holding my fork. In that instant, the years of support flashed through my mind. I looked at each of them and spoke clearly. "Where's the money from both sides?" "Oh, right. I've been providing for both sides. Up until today." The laughter stopped immediately. The whole table fell silent. No one reached for food. No one knew how to respond. Forks hovered in the air as the weight of my words settled over everyone. Delaney's face shifted from amusement to surprise. My mother, Evelyn, glanced between us, her expression changing as she processed what I had said. My father, Harold, set his glass down slowly, his usual calm demeanor cracking. Spencer tried to lighten the moment with a comment about how we were all tired, but his words fell flat in the heavy quiet. I continued without raising my voice. For years, I had covered expenses when needs arose, making sure the household stayed afloat while I managed my own responsibilities in marketing. They had grown used to me stepping in whenever something came up. Sunday dinners often included subtle hints about upcoming costs, and I had responded every time without drawing attention to the cumulative effort. But the casual remark tonight revealed how little value they placed on the consistency behind those contributions. The silence stretched longer than any previous pause at that table. My sister shifted in her seat. No follow-up comment ready. My mother started to speak, but stopped, perhaps sensing the shift. My father stared at his plate as the reality sank in. Spencer looked uncomfortable, his mediation attempt unsuccessful. I felt a strange calm settle over me as the words hung there. This was a clear line drawn after years of one-sided support. The expectation that I would always provide without question had finally met its limit right there in the dining room. No one argued back immediately. The meal continued in awkward bites and minimal conversation, but the atmosphere had changed completely. What had been a routine gathering became the moment everything started to unravel. 2 days after that Sunday dinner, I received an email from the bank. I had been checking my accounts more carefully since the tense meal. The notification arrived while I was reviewing campaign metrics at my desk in the Minneapolis office. It concerned a recent personal loan application that required additional verification. When I opened the documents, the signature looked identical to mine, yet I had never submitted any paperwork. My father, Harold, had started the process using my personal details. He included my social security number, current employment information from the marketing company, and listed the purpose as covering family obligations in Edina. The approved amount was significant, with the first withdrawal already processed and repayment terms beginning shortly. I immediately pulled my complete credit report. Several unfamiliar inquiries showed up from the past months. New accounts had been opened in my name, including additional credit cards with growing balances. All traces pointed back to actions initiated through my father. The combined exposure reached well into the tens of thousands of dollars, directly risking the strong credit history I had maintained through steady payments on my salary. This went far beyond previous requests for mortgage help, tuition support, or medical bills. Those had been open transfers I chose to make. Here was deliberate forgery that could affect my ability to qualify for future promotions, housing loans, or even basic financial products. I sat in the office parking garage after my shift ended, reviewing the printed pages under the dim overhead lights. The realization settled heavily. Years of consistent contributions had apparently created an assumption that boundaries did not apply. No one had mentioned these new applications during recent conversations or at the dinner table. The family address in Edina appeared on some correspondence, suggesting the activity was not entirely hidden from everyone. That evening, I organized all the evidence into a clear folder. The documents left no room for doubt about the unauthorized nature of the transactions. My mother, Evelyn, and sister Delaney had not raised any concerns about the mounting pressures, while my older brother Spencer remained unaware or uninvolved based on what I could see. The following morning, I contacted a lawyer experienced in financial fraud cases. I needed clear steps to dispute the accounts, freeze further activity, and protect my own records. The process would likely require affidavits, bank notifications, and possibly formal reports if the institutions demanded them. As I prepared the initial paperwork, a firm decision formed. I would immediately stop all automatic transfers and shared financial arrangements. My stability in the marketing field and my independent life in the Edina suburb depended on drawing this line now. The email that arrived 2 days after the dinner exposed how far the one-sided dynamic had progressed. Forcing me to take concrete action to reclaim control over my future, I scheduled an appointment with the lawyer for the middle of the following week. The law firm specialized in consumer protection and financial disputes. Located in a quiet building near downtown Minneapolis, I arrived early with the folder containing every document related to the unauthorized loan and new accounts. The attorney, a woman named Ms. Patel, reviewed each page carefully during our meeting. She explained the steps available under federal law to dispute fraudulent accounts and remove my name from the obligations. We drafted affidavits stating that I had not authorized any of the applications or signatures. The bank would receive formal notification to freeze further activity on those lines and investigate the origin of the transactions. Ms. Patel advised that this process could take several weeks, but offered strong protection for my credit profile moving forward. She also outlined how to notify the credit bureaus directly to place alerts on my reports. After the consultation, I sent a clear message to the family group chat. It stated that all financial support would stop effective immediately. No more transfers for household expenses, no covering unexpected costs, and no assistance with any ongoing bills. The message was brief and factual, without listing past contributions or assigning blame. My older brother Spencer called later that afternoon. He sounded concerned and suggested we all sit down to talk things through. His words leaned toward finding a compromise so that the household in Edina could maintain its current arrangements. I listened but held firm, explaining that the recent discoveries made continuing the previous pattern impossible. He mentioned that our father Harold was stressed about the situation and that our mother Evelyn worried about the impact on daily life. The next few days involved more paperwork. I updated my own bank accounts to prevent any shared access and reviewed my credit monitoring service for new alerts. Each step reinforced the decision to separate my finances completely. The marketing projects at work demanded focus, yet I managed to handle the legal requirements during lunch breaks and evenings. Spencer reached out again with a different tone, asking if there was any flexibility on the immediate cutoff. He referenced recent sales targets he was trying to meet and implied that temporary help would benefit everyone. I repeated that the boundary was final. The forgery had crossed a line that could not be ignored or negotiated away at this point. By the end of the week, the initial responses from the bank started arriving. They acknowledged receipt of the dispute and began their internal review. Ms. Patel confirmed that my liability for the unauthorized loan could be limited if the evidence held up. I felt a sense of control returning as the administrative pieces fell into place. The family remained quiet in the group chat after my announcement. No direct questions came about the loan details or the credit impact. Instead, the silence spoke volumes about how unexpected the cutoff had been. I used the extra time previously spent on family matters to catch up on personal tasks and prepare for upcoming campaigns at the office. The shift created space I had not realized was missing. This phase marked the practical implementation of the boundary I had declared at dinner. Every action taken that week built upon the realization that my financial independence required active protection rather than passive hope that the dynamic would improve on its own. I invited the entire family to my house in Edina 2 weeks later. The living room felt different with all of them gathered there instead of the familiar dining table at my parents' place. I had prepared simple coffee and water, nothing more. My mother, Evelyn, arrived first, her expression tense as she looked around the space. My father, Harold, followed, avoiding direct eye contact. My older brother, Spencer, brought my younger sister, Delaney, and they sat on the couch together. I started the conversation without delay. The recent financial discoveries left no choice but to formalize the separation of responsibilities. I laid out the facts about the unauthorized loan and accounts opened without consent. Harold shifted in his seat but offered no immediate explanation. Evelyn spoke up first, her voice carrying the familiar tone of concern mixed with disappointment. She mentioned how the family had always relied on mutual support and suggested that mistakes could be worked through together. Spencer nodded and added that cutting ties completely would create unnecessary hardship for everyone in the suburb. Delaney remained mostly quiet at first, then mentioned her current influencer projects that required steady funding for equipment and promotion. Her words implied an expectation that things would return to the previous arrangement. I addressed each point directly. The forgery crossed a boundary that affected my credit and future stability in the marketing field. Continuing any form of financial involvement would only enable the same patterns. Spencer tried to mediate again, proposing a gradual reduction instead of an immediate stop. I explained that partial measures would not address the core issue of trust and independence. Harold finally spoke, claiming the actions were taken under pressure from mounting bills in Edina, and that he intended to repay everything eventually. His explanation did little to change the situation. The evidence showed deliberate use of my information without discussion. The discussion grew more heated as Evelyn appealed to family loyalty and the years we had spent together. Spencer mentioned his own sales challenges and how the family unit had always helped each other through tough times. Delaney added that she felt singled out in the process. I held my position throughout. My decision was final. No more transfers, no shared accounts, and no future assistance. The house in Edina would need to find its own solutions moving forward. I emphasized that this choice protected my own path, rather than punishing anyone. As the meeting wound down, the atmosphere remained strained. No agreements were reached. Spencer suggested another conversation in the future, but I made it clear that the boundary stood. Evelyn hugged me briefly before leaving, though the gesture felt hollow given the circumstances. Harold and Delaney followed without additional words. I closed the door after they drove away and sat in the quiet living room. The confrontation had been difficult, but necessary. Every family member had heard the terms clearly, and the lack of resolution confirmed that the old dynamic could not continue. This gathering represented the last time we addressed the issues as a group. From that point, the paths diverged completely. 1 month had passed since that final gathering at my house. The effects showed clearly in the Edina household. Mortgage payments fell behind once more, bringing new warnings from the bank about possible foreclosure. Harold's credit score declined sharply from the disputed loan and missed obligations, leading to higher interest rates on existing accounts. Collection agencies began calling the family home regularly, adding tension during the long Minnesota winter months when heating costs rose. Evelyn handled daily budgeting with much tighter limits. Grocery trips became shorter, and several home repairs waited indefinitely. Spencer's vehicle, essential for his sales work, needed servicing they struggled to fund. Delaney cut back on her content schedule since equipment upgrades and promotion expenses proved difficult without prior assistance. Messages in the family group remained minimal and avoided any mention of money. Spencer once noted they were looking into local resources in the Minneapolis suburbs, but no direct appeals came my way. The quiet confirmed that everyone understood the boundary stood firm. Meanwhile, my days gained new structure. The marketing department offered me a promotion to senior coordinator after strong results on recent campaigns. The role brought higher responsibilities along with better pay and more flexible hours. I used the additional resources to enroll in advanced analytics training and plan a brief getaway when winter eased slightly. My own credit profile stabilized as the bank disputes moved forward. Monitoring services showed positive movement without the previous risks. Evenings now included time for personal projects and rest instead of handling external requests. The mental space felt noticeably lighter. The entire experience highlighted how one-sided patterns can develop quietly over time. What started as helpful gestures evolved into an unbalanced load that disregarded individual limits. The dinner remark exposed the disrespect, while the loan issue forced a necessary break. Drawing that clear line demonstrated that real support involves reciprocity and respect, not endless sacrifice from one side. Prioritizing my stability opened opportunities for growth in my career and personal life that had stayed out of reach before. Healthy family connections require open acknowledgement of everyone's contributions and boundaries. Our paths stayed separate with no attempts at reconciliation. Each person adjusted to the changed circumstances in their own manner. For me, the shift brought a sense of control and peace I had not known in years. The decision protected my future and reinforced the value of self-respect over maintaining outdated expectations.